Good morning. It is Sunday morning. It is 10:33 a.m. So close, but was running a bit late this morning. And that means it is time for Sunday Club, a weekly Ruby on Rails live stream where each week we do some Ruby on Rails coding together, take a look at building a Ruby on Rails application. And the application that we are working on very, very slowly is an event registration application. Allowing people to take part or register to take part in events and organizers to run them, and just looking at some Rails stuff around that. And for the last few weeks, we have been looking at view component and some of the user interface design stuff, looking at Sketch for Mac OS and how we can kind of use that to design a kind of set of components and transfer them into the application, and what the trade-offs are and where we put the CSS and all of some of that stuff over the last few weeks. Wasn't here last week. I was on holiday. I was in the sun, so we haven't looked at any of this stuff for a couple of weeks. And I'm sort of hoping we're just about to jump straight in where we left off. But I don't have a huge memory because it was from a couple of weeks ago. So I'm just sort of assuming we can do that. No follow-up because it wasn't here and was in the sun, sipping pina coladas by the pool. So instead of any follow-up, let's just dive straight in and take a look at where we got to. So let me zoom in a little bit on here. So we were building this flow out. So we've been doing some user interface work. This page here is like the event page. So you can upload an image associated with your event. It all looks pretty rough at the moment, but we were just getting like the page structure in place and working out how to lay some of this stuff out. Well, this originally kind of sat up above there and had like a nice little overlay. So this kind of cover photo here works. So I've broken that obviously, but you can go back and look at all the streams in the YouTube archive if you want to take a look at those. But we, so we used, this is a view component from Rails, view component gem. We've got some event information, and then this page uses the CSS grid layout, which I hadn't really used a whole lot before, but really solved the problem of having this order change, but still have a really flexible layout, which was great. So then when you buy the ticket, you come through into our new order flow. And so this is order/new. And we worked on getting, I think this is, yeah, just some Flexbox stuff up at the top. This is another view component here. This is like this event summary, I think you ended up calling it, but then we said we'd need to change its name. We looked at formatting this string in Rails to do with date formatting stuff. Again, this is on the previous stream, so drop back in the YouTube archive. And what we wanted to get to, I actually have Sketch open, which is silly of me, but I will get Sketch open. And we can take a look at this one. We can remind me later to update the Sketch. So I won't run through this whole Sketch thing again. You can drop back through the archive to take a look at this. I'm going back through some of these rough designs, but let's dive in on this part here. We've got this idea of form fields that you can fill in and making these reusable. And at the moment, this is what's coming out, and it's just a label here with a form field here. And this form field isn't using the CSS from our the CSS library we've installed, which is Primer from GitHub. We're using Primer for our CSS library. So, okay, that's annoying because we want it to. So if on here, if we were to put a class of form-control, it would get the formatting. So you can see it's like looks slightly different. I don't know how clear that's coming through. If I zoom in a bit more, you can sort of see it gets a lighter background and some curved, like more border radius and padding and all of that fun stuff. But more importantly, it becomes consistent with our whole CSS library, which we can then go and manipulate. Now, why doesn't it have that CSS class in it? Because we are using Simple Form for our form rendering, and we want to go and manipulate the output of that. And I have done this in the past, but I can remember very little about it. So let's go and find out what any of that looks like. So what page are we looking at? We're looking at order new. And so we have simple form for owner name, owner email. It's a simple form for an order. The order model is the thing we're creating. Owner name, owner email. Event ID is hidden, so that one isn't available to the user. And then this button down here. And this button is, we're specifying the classes on that, but I think we could even manipulate the output of submit, I think. And simple form 4 is the gem version. So I think we would normally have form 4 or form with to use the Rails versions, and we're using simple form 4. So we want to manipulate the output from this line. And I think what we could do from memory, I think we could do something that manipulated this. I think you can do something like that, and everything in here would be your output. I might be totally making that up, but I think there's a way to pass a block to input. Ooh, I might be totally making that up. Simple form for Rails. Let's go dive in. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna check your set. Yeah, fine. We're gonna go and work out how to customize this output. And I remember the docs for this being really good. So wrapping Rails form helpers, extra helpers, custom inputs, custom form builder, stripping away old wrapper divs. This is all in the right area. Custom components. Okay, I think it's all in here somewhere. Custom form builder. Do you think it's wrapping? I'm gonna go with this one first. Oh, so this is, well, I've accidentally come to what I was trying to describe here. So say you wanted to use a Rails form helper, but still wrap it in simple form goodness. You can wrap it by calling a block, right? So this is what I think I was remembering here. So this is what I was just referring to, is just passing up, still calling input, but passing stuff to it. Okay. So that's not quite what we want to do, because we want to change the default output. And the only reason I know this is possible because I've done it before, and I'm assuming that they haven't changed the gem too much. So that's yeah, I think I should go back to that new. Okay, so input field gives you a plain one, whereas input gives you all of the wrapped version. We still want the wrapped version because we want the label and we want all of the helpful stuff. Okay, so maybe I am just going to scroll through here a little bit. Put this font size up to make it a bit more readable. Stream. I don't even know what to search for in these docs. Like output, I guess. Wrappers. Custom wrapper, I feel like, is a good shout. I'm not sure it's the worst thing in the world for me to be kind of giving my eyes over these. Oh, did we have to define a new input potentially and have it like an output class or something like that? Right, I'm just skimming through all of these. If this doesn't work, we'll have to go and Google something more specific. And I'm sure I'm just missing it, by the way. I'm sure it's Wrappers API. Here we go. Here we go. This is what we're looking for, the Wrappers API. With simple form, you can configure how your components will be rendered using the Wrappers API. The syntax looks like this. Config.wrappers, tag, class, error class, valid class. Okay, cool. So this looks like the default set. So Form extensions, use HTML optional pattern, use max length, use folder. Form components will generate the form tags like labels, inputs, hints, or errors. The available components are here: label input, hint and error. Form extensions are used to generate some attributes or perform some lookups on the model to add extra information to your components. You can add and create new form components using the wrappers API in the following example. This will wrap the hint and error components with a div tag using the class separator. Well, do we want to add a new wrapper or just manipulate the wrapper that's already being created? What's the actual output we're trying to change? So this, let's make this a bit bigger. Let's just try and understand the output we're trying to get to here. So we have this, we have a label here, your name, and a field here, the name field. So label, field, and I'm assuming this is the wrapper class. Input string required, and then order owner name is the order is the model, and owner name is the field. So that's what's coming out at the moment. So we actually want to manipulate the input field specifically rather than wrap it. You can customize form components by passing options to them. Okay, here we go. So config.wrappers. So do we have one of these already? I think we're in the right area here. Oh, whoops. Copy that. Config wrappers. Oh, we do. Great. Okay. So we have config wrappers, default class, input, hint class, valid class, lots of stuff. Okay, so all the documented options here. Super helpful. Input, use label input. Default wrapper to be used is this default one. So I'm assuming this is called default somewhere. Yeah, okay, so that first argument here must be name of the wrapper. Okay, fine. So then go back to those docs. v.use label input. Hint and error. Okay, so it said that one of them was just straight up input tag alone. So can we do this? So we can copy that. v.use input, and we want class form control. I don't think we want the rest. Is this appending or is this overwriting? So let's, I think we have to restart the server for this because this will be a config one. So let's start the server. Go back to our page. Oh, we're getting an entire extra input. And it is appending. Great. Okay, so we are getting... Okay, excellent. So do we want to take out label input? If we do this separately, do we do label? That doesn't need, and then we don't need label input. Let's see what this produces. Again, we have to restart the server. I'm just experimenting now, just trying to, again, as ever on this stream, I should probably just read the docs, but it's more exciting to just sort of see what happens. Okay, so now we have the initial version of what we want, which is the input has the form-control class, which we wanted to append. So that is now behaving like our primer CSS library, which is great. Everything's formatted as it should be. What we would love to do then is, can we specify the actual HTML of this? Like, so now could we wrap, could we put like this, that's an HTML wrapper there. There's like a div wrapping around both of them. But it would be great if there was a wrapper around label and then a wrapper around input. So one was above the other, and we could kind of format those. So what would that look like? So we could pass wrap with, I guess. Oops. So wrap, I'm just assuming that this is possible. So class. I'm just going to add some made up ones here. So form label. Oops. Just make it more obvious. So form label wrapper, and then I'm going to put here form control wrapper. Don't know if this will work, but it worked on the other ones. So now again, we have to restart because it's a config and see what HTML output we get this time. So ideally what we want is your name, and then on the new line in a new div, form control, and then the same for the field below. Yes, okay, great. That's exactly what we wanted. So now we have the wrapper. Right, so where do errors go? So if we submit this, errors end up in right. Yeah, they end up in the wrong order. Okay, fine. And is that because of the order of these configs? Like, does it, we were to put like this? Is it genuinely that it just iterates over them in that order? Or... yeah, yeah, okay. So now if you can see what's happening here, hopefully this is zoomed in enough. We've got our wrapper here still. Then we've got our label, which is also wrapped in a div. And we wouldn't, I don't know if we need to do that. If we style the label, we could add a class to that label and add a class to input. It would force them to wrap. I feel like having more flexibility with the wrapper is actually helpful. But potentially less than ideal. You're sort of ending up with more divs than you need. That's a first run at that. I think maybe you could take these divs out. I'm not really sure what we're trying to, like, we haven't actually finalized what the formatting of our forms look like. So at least this is like a demo of, hey, this is possible. So now our error is below, because of the ordering of this config file, our error is below our field, which means that theoretically, I'm assuming that in here, if we go back and how do you actually get a hint then? Can you pass hint? This is a hint, or does that go in the input HTML argument? Ah. Right, so here's another problem. We need to style these so they don't run into each other. So we've got, this is a hint and can't be blank. We would want these to interact together well so they could be shown on the same field. Again, that's fine. You could just sort of CSS your way out of that. And again, you would want to do this for each form field type, radio button, select, blah, 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 the whole list. But we have got that HTML page that we used a few streams ago, which had all of the types on it. Like it had every HTML element. We got it off GitHub from somewhere. It's back in there. Like if not last stream, then the one before. You could sort of convert each of those form fields to a simple form field to just run through them. Because this is a stream, we're not going to be that diligent. So like, I think, you know, if we were doing this properly, that's what we would do and go and check that everything worked. But I think we'll do that for here. All right, cool. So this is sort of working and looks a bit rough, but do we want to just fix those styling issues and move on? Or, I mean, to be honest, do we live in a world where we wrap those as well? with this. Maybe that's worse. Not sure. That's config, so we need to change it again. Yeah, so now at least they're on a new line. Semantically, you could sort of then have a conversation around what you wanted your form fields to be, but in this world, we're at least getting the right formatting out the other end. And we could just go back to get rid of our errors. Oops. Go back to get rid of our errors. Cool. And so let's zoom all the way back out and get our sketch file back up. Everything's really small. I think we screenshot those. So I think we want to make our default form fields bigger, I think, because this is pretty tiny. And I think this gets us back to the same place where we were before. So let's start committing some of this stuff. And what I mean by getting us back to the same place before, which is we can start to override primer. Oh, we don't need that hint. That was just an example, don't we? So we can discard that change. And we just want config changes. I do want to write that up a little bit, so I should do a proper message there. Until now, the output for form fields used the simple form defaults, as we have installed the primer CSS library. We want our form fields to use the to use primers CSS classes. And this commit, we're adding those classes and wrapping everything, everything in divs to get the desired layout. Not a lot of thought going into the semantic HTML here, just adding this for now to get the desired layout. And then I'm going to add a quick note for myself, which is note that the order of the config file sets the order of the output elements. I'm sure that's in the elements. I'm sure that's in the simple form docs anyway. All right, cool. So we've committed that. Okay, so now we want to sort of back to where we started. Primer and overriding it. And I put in the title of this stream about the idea of removing webpack. So we are not, we have inserted primer for use in this project, but we don't have all of like the SAS files and everything here. We are just overriding CSS variables, and my question sort of was like, is that fine? And so let's answer the question of whether we can do what we want to do here with just by continuing with that approach. And then we can take a look at what it would take to remove webpack for performance reasons. So here we want to get into the sort of CSS variables of it all. Where are they? Where did we do that? Did we do that at all? Did we find out how, but did we end up actually doing any? This is where working on a project once a week is a real detriment. So I thought we had, but I can't see any in here. So on the root, I can't see any in here. I genuinely thought we'd shipped some. I say shipped. We haven't really shipped anything. There's none in there. Oh, did we do them within the CSS of our individual components? Yes. Okay. Right. Oh no, no, that's me just setting my own. No. Okay. So no, the answer's still no. I'm genuinely just clicking through SAS files. This is science. To sort of look for, what am I looking for? Well, I guess I'm just looking for this, right? I'm looking for root. Here, right. App JavaScript style sheets primer. Where was that? I thought I looked in app JavaScript style sheets primer. Right. Okay. So here is what I was looking for. Excellent. Okay. And so this is in the webpack generated CSS. And then in here, no, yeah, in here, everything gets imported for webpack to pump out. And so by overriding these, we then change the defaults in that Primer then uses in CSS variables. Okay, great. And the issue we had is discovering these easily in related ways. So let's go and see if we can. I think we're covering old ground, but I know I have to kind of kick this up every week. So I just want GitHub Primer, I think. Right, here we go. So main data colors vars, main data colors, main. This is the primitives repo. And then let's go in the GitHub Primer CSS. All right, so we've done this. We have looked at this before. You can import individual Primer modules directly from the Primer CSS package. Include the source files written in SAS. After installing with npm, you can add your project's node modules directory to your. Oh, interesting. So you can add your project's node modules to your SAS include paths. So you actually tell it to load node modules. Oh, I've never done that before. So that's how you can then get access to the SAS variables. Interesting. Okay, so let's take a look at that, because that might solve our problem. Is that a perform? Okay, again, if we're looking to remove Webpack, maybe this isn't the way. Although I think would we still, if we move to like ES modules, would we still end up with node modules directory, and it's just the mechanism underneath that changes? So much I don't know. So much. Okay, so we don't have include paths at the moment. And our SAS is coming from... Are we using both? We're using Webpack and Sprockets because we have components. So let's back down again. We have app, JavaScript, style sheets, and that's running SAS through it. Then we also have assets, style sheets, and this stuff's going through sprockets, right? Just saying words now. So we would only care. So is that then in here? No, it's in our... like webpack config, right? Oh, this is sort of why I want to get rid of webpack. Let me just read what they're saying. So in here... okay, load paths in Ruby. We're not doing it in Ruby. So Sass include paths. So where is Sass? Like, where would we pass that config to Sass? Not in here. That's just the packages. Okay, cool. So post CSS, but that's just config for post CSS. Or maybe you just end up with one of these .config.js's for all of the things you do, and as long as it's... So again, so the goal we're trying to accomplish is, could we get all of our Sass variables into our Sass by doing what it's saying here and saying the included source files are written in Sass using CSS syntax. After installing with npm, which we've done, you can add your project's node modules directly to your Sass include paths. Then import like this. So how have we imported it at the moment? How did we get primer in? Shit, I remember like cracking the nut on that. Here. Okay, and so that's different from doing a Sass import, which would give us all of the variables. This is doing, I think, is that right? Because this is... importing it into the JavaScript rather than doing a Sass import. And so therefore we don't have access to the Sass variables. Okay, so let's see if we can do Rails, webpack, Sass include paths, Rails, webpack, Sass include path. How do I include to Sass paths? Let's just click on the first one that comes up. Config webpack environment. Okay, great. That's the first clue we've had. Config webpack environment. Okay. Stuff. Okay. 2018, someone has added this. This worked for me in Webpack 5. One extra level deep options dot Sass options. Okay, so kindly person in 2020. Webpacker 545. I actually don't know what version of Webpacker we're using. Okay, great. So we're gonna do the classic thing of arbitrarily taking a line of code from a GitHub issue, not really reading any of the context around it, and just pasting it blindly in and hoping that it works. Professional. And we are gonna have to kill the server and start it again. Great. Okay, so what? I don't think we expect anything to happen now because we haven't actually imported the CSS. So does this still work? Okay, so yes, it still works. Did that take longer or was that my imagination? Was that like psychosomatic? So now, no idea what we've just done. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Then import it like this. So can we now do this in a Sass file rather than the JavaScripty stuff? Really out over my skis here. Here. Here and here. So this could go, but instead we could add in this and this and this. There's no way that's working. Just guessed at all of that. I'll try. If that works, I'll have to try and run through what I think I just did, but I don't think I did it. That would work. So let's refresh that. I'm expecting an error here. Okay, it's now. I think whatever. I think it's now doing the right thing because that took that webpack is taking a really long time. Okay. Stuff is still happening. Like, okay. Okay, so we're still doing the thing. So do we have access to the Sass variables in our Sass now? And we can know that by doing button primary. Okay, so we can just do like color, I guess. And we can do important, so we just want it to show up. So let's just do a quick test. Let's make it red to know that this CSS works. We're like, right, the text of this button should just go red. And then we'll try and replace it with a Sass variable to see if that's worked. A Sass variable from primer. Okay, great. So the CSS works. Now, can we swap this out for a Sass variable, not a CSS variable? Because we get access to the mixins and stuff. So okay, so color is actually a bad example because we're using standard CSS ones there. So I should actually have used like okay, well let's do font size instead, so we know that we can do. Okay, does this work? Because we haven't defined this anywhere. So if it works, we know that it's coming from primer. Okay, and has it actually changed size? No, I've broken it all together. Okay, great, so it doesn't work. Well, at least we know it doesn't work. That's cool. What's really cool is that it hasn't broken everything. So what it's broken is our customization. So it's obviously broken this file, I guess. So what CSS is actually available here? Is there like a CSS class that's not working? What did we add it to? Button dash primary. So button dash primary. Is there anything with button dash primary, or did we just did it just totally skip that file? Okay, here. So color, background color, that's all from button.css. And so it's just not output. So did we get an error here? Yes, okay, great. Undefined variable. Okay, cool, so that hasn't worked. Okay, well, that's good. So at least we got an error. Error in prime of variables. .scss, is that the name of the file we were in? Yes, okay. It's loaded, SS loaded this, module build failed, undefined variable, font size small. Root style sheet, okay, so. And so is anything being output as this file? So in here, could we do like body, background color, make everything like violet. Again, we'll just override everything. We just want to see if that file is actually doing anything. So does the entire background of the screen go purple? So this stuff, oh, it does. Okay, great. So in here then, where that's happening, where it's going purple. What did I just add that to? Body. Yes, index. Oh, maybe we are getting. Is there a separate? Maybe that is working, but it's just importing the wrong thing. Is there like a variables file I need to pull in? So it's at, what's it pulling in at? Prime as CSS. Import individual modules, blah, blah, blah. Core product and marketing. So I've looked at some of this stuff, like how this is distributed. Marketing, core. Or maybe it's primitives rather than variables. Right, okay, so this is doing a bunch of CSS token importing, which I'm sort of having an understanding of what that is. I think I'm going to start backing out of this. Base. I'm finding all of this really interesting. I don't know. I think it's slightly awkward doing this every once a week on the stream because it doesn't force me to make any decisions around this stuff. I just learn a bit about moving it forward. I think if we were working on an actual project where we were trying to ship it, this in like the last several streams looking at stuff like this would have been like one meeting or one sort of session where we'd be like, look, we need to go, let's make some calls. And I think, yeah, and I think this is sort of helping me learn how this project is structured. And it's really interesting how you sort of ship a large CSS and view component framework across a large organization. But I'm also not sure if I wasn't interested in that I would move ahead with it, because I think like how much overhead are you willing to take on to sort of understand all that stuff when all you really need to do is style some buttons so you could grab like, I don't know, Bootstrap or something. Like how big is where you work is potentially something that might impact your decision on using something like this. Because all we really want, like we can start to back out of some of this stuff and just grab the CSS variable, and then go. What I really want to do is then start to look at removing webpack. So let's back out of some of this for now. This can all go. So let's turn our server off. I think this can all just go, right? Like. And my neighbors have apparently started doing some Sunday morning. I'm just going to close my window. Okay, so yeah, I think we can just remove all of this. But I think that's sort of useful to know that that's an option. We could have chased that down further. I think like we could get those SAS variables in. There's a path there. I just don't think that the juice is worth the squeeze for us on it right now. But that's an interesting thing to go down. Whereas all we really want to do is make our form controls bigger. So let's go and look at what our so we're looking at things like input large. That's just changing the font size. So let's get our server back up and running. And in our, that should go back to our simple form initializer and say we always on our input want to put that and that. Let's see how large really is. Oh, had I already started the server? Oh, okay. So I have to do it again, do I? Yep, sorry. I think I'd missed that. So form control, input large. Give that another try. That is literally just making the field longer. Not changing the height of it. Is the height explicitly set? No, what happens if we ramp? Make this a bit bigger to see on the stream. What happens if we just keep ramping this up? It does. Yeah, I'm talking about bigger. Like, bigger. I like a large default. Gov.uk is pretty good for a chunky form field. What's their jam? So the default, that's not too huge actually. I think in my mind they're always bigger. What's it calculated as? If it turns out to be 16, then what's the point? 19. Okay, well, the 16 is then a bit tiny. Oh, I was at 20. Yeah, that seems reasonable. So the default is 16. Yeah, I'm getting old. I need to be able to see that shit. So, all right, let's where is font size set on the default? What sets the font size on the default? Body font size. Oh, okay, so it uses that. Okay. So did we just start overriding the class name? Because it hasn't, it's only given, this goes back to what I was trying to achieve. So, okay, well, this is body font size, but it's a Sass variable. It's not like on Bootstrap, you used to get like form dash control dash font dash size, sort of for each area. For each, like there'd be forms and buttons and things like that. Each one would have their own little set of variables. So am I doing something like this in our code base, which doesn't feel great? Like we could have another file in here, but I'm just keep going with this one, and then we could do font size, and then here we could have well then, because it's control and select, we could do like form text size default or something like that. And does that then work? Yeah, that's nice and big. And I would want some more padding as well. So again, we go back to here. And these are just set straight up. So, yeah. So the default there is 5. So let's go to 8. And the other default was 12. So let's go take it to like 16. And again, there's probably some science reason why they've done theirs that way, but I just want it bigger by default. And so again, this is where you'd be doing all of your design up front and all your research and looking into all these good things. But we're not doing any of that. It's just for the stream. So this should now have a bit more spacing as well. Within the field, I mean, because it's got extra padding, not the stuff around it. Okay, that does not seem to have worked. So let's see what's happening there. Well, here we go. We've broken it. Oh, I forgot to put var around everything. Okay, fine. All right, so now that we've made a decision. Hello in the chat. Is it really fun for a family to go on a run or a tricky way to get their kids to exercise? I am very grateful that my parents were not family fun run parents. They were more family, let's go and eat lunch parents. But I do know that when you are trying to get people to buy tickets for a fun run, they want to bring their kids real bad. And it is one of the so this is a cynical take, but summer holidays from school and other holidays are just a large block of time that I don't have children, but it is a large block of time that you need to fill with people who are like desperate to do stuff and have loads of energy, your children. And so if you have to get them to run around a lake or a town or whatever it is to burn out that energy, you will do it. And you will pay. You will pay for that privilege. And why not? Why not? So it's a bit wide on the. I think I just wanted more vertical spacing. So I think we can actually leave that as the default. My concern here really is in the maintainability of this approach, which I think would, if we were doing this for a proper app and not the stream code, I think that would be the concern I would raise, which is like, if we were doing this with SAS variables and importing those in, we're sort of tying our build to the library. So if they remove the variable or the name changes or something like that, we know. By just overriding the this, we're not, well, maybe, are we resilient against changes that the underlying library would make? So let's say that they switch how they're updating this. This is an obtuse example, I think, but like, let's say they're updating the size of their form fields, how they manage it. So maybe rather than using a combination of the font height and the padding, they switch to using, I don't know, like an explicit height or some new CSS attribute or something like that. We wouldn't know, or anything like that would just roll in as we updated Primer under the hood. Those changes would just roll in. All we're trying to do here is override specific attributes on, like, just using the CSS cascade. That's all we're doing here. We happen to then be using our own variables like to do that, but we're not really changing or being aware of anything that changes in the library under the hood. And does that change our relationship to the library in any way, like over time? Is that good or bad? I don't have the answers to any of these questions, but I think I would want to have, if this was like a thing for work or something, I think I'd probably want to have a conversation around it, make a decision, and then write up the why and the diligence around updating that package from then on. So it's like, hey, if you're updating Primer, you have to go and maybe like visually check that nothing's broken. So maybe you have like a test page with all the HTML forms on it and all of your stuff that you expect to look the same. Yeah. But then if I was doing this, I think if I was doing this at somewhere large enough where that would be required, I don't know. Yeah, I think you'd still be doing the same thing if it was a really small team as well. That would be my concern, that you're sort of disassociating yourself from the CSS library a bit. Not disassociating yourself, but just like adding in a point of failure. Anyway, that's not relevant because this is all, well, it is relevant, but it's just because it's for the stream. We're happy to go with it. Fine, screw it. We've made our font fields bigger by default and everything is happy and wonderful. I would then want to do the same thing for buttons. I think you'd end up with a bunch of these, which I'm not going to do right now because I want to go and look at removing webpack. But I think you'd end up with Style Sheets Primer, and you'd basically end up with sort of a little shadow set of files that were the same as theirs. So like forms, form control, forms, form select, and start to look at those. And then like buttons, I think we would want to do. So you'd end up with form buttons, button. And I think I would look to do that just to match the file names and stuff like that. So you're like, hey, here is where I'm overriding this for these reasons, and make it a bit easier for someone updating them. See, these ones are easier because they're just using the CSS variables. So you could create that file and then just have one of these that was just overriding the value. So that then does get easier, because then if they stop using that, you wouldn't get a build failure if they stopped using that variable, would you? Because you would still be setting it. Yeah, okay. Okay, these would all be things I would be bearing in mind. I don't think there'd be deal breakers depending on what I was trying to accomplish. Yeah, that's definitely a downside of sort of not having any real stakes on the code we do in the streams. Like, sort of like, yeah, that would be an interesting conversation. Then you don't actually have to think of anything real for it. This can go, so we don't actually want input large on here. So let's just put a quick whip commit. Whip increase font size and padding form controls. I'm actually going to write that down because I'm going to come back and do these. So let's do a proper git commit. Hello in the chat, by the way. Sorry I didn't say hello earlier. I was laughing at your joke, but I hope you're having a lovely Sunday, or whatever you are up to. So we are using the CSS cascade to override some values set by primer CSS. I think this leaves us somewhat vulnerable, is that the right word I'm looking for, to the underlying library making changes that that our overrides no longer take into account, i.e. we're not using the library's CSS variables or not even their CSS variables. So if they were to rename them or change their usage, our code would not break, but visually it would not look right. So it would break. Yeah. Oh, I'll just go sign into that on another screen. I'm just going to come back. Sorry, I'm just going to sign into that because Sketch is pretty cool. You can, it's gone kind of like all cloud-based. It's sort of like, it's not Figma, but it's, so it's like a Mac app, but it lets you put all of the files and everything in its own little cloud storage place. But each license, I use it on multiple machines, but each, not even multiple machines, just multiple users within the same machine. But it then makes you sign in each time. I think Figma is probably overall more convenient, but I do like Sketch, so whatever. Right, blah, blah, blah. That was all good. And we got our end result. So let's just do a quick recap on what we did. We changed the default output that we get from Simple Form. And we looked at pulling more of Primer into our build, i.e. their SAS variables and things like that. We got somewhere, something happened. So I think we pulled all of the node module stuff into our SAS. Maybe we didn't, I don't know. It didn't work, but I think we could keep going down that path if we really gave a shit. So maybe we could link them together, but we didn't, which is fine. So then instead we've taken the path of least resistance, which is just overriding either the the CSS variables, or just straight up overriding the just overriding the attributes on the CSS cascade, and we've made bigger form elements. Like that's actually what we wanted to do. So we can then know that we could now do the rest of it, which is the labels and everything else that it's producing for us, make our default buttons bigger. That's then just an exercise in matching Sketch to our CSS override approach. I've written up in the commit message why I think there are long-term issues with that approach, but it would get you I think it would get you pretty far for a long time, and you would just have to pay really close attention to your primer update. So I think probably for a small team, it's a viable way to go. Anyway, let's do what I wrote in the title of this stream, which is, what does it look like to get rid of Webpack? And what is the catalyst for this? The catalyst is, I used Bridgetown for a little static site, and it was using one of the new build pipelines. ES build, I think. And it was way faster. And I was like, oh, I want this. I don't want that, which is slow. So you would have seen, if you've been watching the stream, that when we were making changes to our CSS or our config stuff earlier, when you refresh, you have to wait for that Webpack recompile. And I think Webpack is doing loads of cool stuff there, but I think it might just take a long time. Now, maybe this is a misunderstanding, but my understanding is that the new world, because it's not doing all of the Webpack stuff, is faster. So what does that mean to update? And do we have to do a full Rails update to get there? And so let's go in from Rails. Let's go and look into this together. We're going to do it together. Okay, so maybe just clicking on the first result from so this is what I'm looking for, right? Okay, migrating. Okay, so I'm not looking at removing, I'm looking at migrating. Okay, and do we want to do, if you've never watched this stream before, I have to say, don't do a lot of diligence on here. We sort of just crack into stuff and see if it breaks and see what happens. And usually, because of the wonderful people of the open source community, things will go fairly well. That all looked pretty straightforward. I've just skimmed through that article. This is from 2019. And I have read, like, I don't think I'm starting from, like, no, I have sort of read some stuff around the thinking here, which is that the world has sort of moved on and we don't need some of the stuff that Webpack was doing for us back in the day. I'm skimming over both a lot of detail and a lot of things I can't remember about that. Should we just do this and see what happens? Because it seems really simple to get started. Let's just, fuck it, let's just go and have a crack at it. I'm not going to make a new Git branch because we're now so far into this work in progress branch, because I haven't had time or the inclination to go back and rebase it, that I think this branch might just be called We're on this forever, which is fine. I did go back and tidy up some commits on there, so it's not too crazy. I'll check this at the bottom. I know we should be ordering these in some way, but it's the stream. Do what we want. Okay, and the terminal, okay, so then Rails JavaScript install ES build. I think, is there like a new one coming? Okay, let's Rails 7 JavaScript. I feel like we should actually go and read this, because I think, is like ES build now already outdated? Am I thinking of like stuff I read on the Rails 6 update? How to use Rails without the need for Node.js? How to create a new Rails application using import maps? Yes, is this the newer one? Maybe I'm now out of date from the things I read a while ago. Or Webpack to bundle your JavaScript. What turbos now to use? Okay, so import maps let you import JavaScript modules using logical names that map to versioned files directly from the browser. Import maps are the default from Rails 7, allowing anyone to build modern JavaScript applications using most NPM packages without the need for transpiling or bundling. Applications using import maps do not need Node.js or Yarn to function. If you plan to use Rails with import maps Rails to manage your JavaScript dependencies, there is no need to install Node or Yarn. Okay. Okay, maybe we want to do this. But is ESBuild powering import maps, or are they two separate things? I have no idea what's happening. Because import maps is just the mechanism, right? Yeah, okay. Import maps are another default. You can create new Rails with your choice of ESBuild, webpack, or rollup, right? Okay, so there's still ESBuild is still the thing doing the thing. Okay, I think. To use a bundler instead of import maps in a new Rails application, pass the JavaScript. These bundling options each come with a simple configuration and integration with the asset pipeline via the JS bundling Rails gem. What was that one telling us to do? JS bundling Rails. Okay, good. So we are up to date with that previous one. Okay, good. Using a bundling option, use bin dev to start the Rails server and build JavaScript for development. If you are using a JavaScript bundler in your Rails node, it must be installed. Okay, fine. So we've already got Yarn and Node anyway. Choosing between import maps and a JavaScript bundler. When you create a new Rails application, you'll need to choose. Import maps are the default option because Finian, I haven't seen you for ages, and either you owe me an email or I owe you an email. I can't remember, but I love you and I miss you. Hey Max, if you need to build anything, SAS or JSX, for example, you'll most likely want to roll with ESBuild. Okay, cool. But okay, so ESBuild. I'm still heading towards ESBuild, but following this tutorial, right? So I'm still on path. Because I still end up with, because I don't think I do want JSX, because I want to try and live in this app in a non-React world. So I think I only want .js, the stimulus stuff. So does that buy me anything? And how are you, by the way? Just using the stream as my own personal catch-up mechanism. For many applications, especially those that rely on the Hotwire stack, which is what we sort of want to use, I think. Import maps will be the right option for the long term. You can read more about the reasoning behind making import maps the default here. But then I have just pulled in a bunch of crap from like a CSS library and stuff like that. So I think I might just be undermining what I've just said because I am now using a bunch of third-party stuff. I'm not trying to guilt you into email me, Finian. That wasn't that wasn't what I was saying. Don't panic. I am aware that it takes me about a year to reply to an email. Use the JS. Okay, so as per the article. Okay, cool. So other requirements that indicate you should choose a traditional bundle JSX or TypeScript. Okay, fine. I do like TypeScript, but I think we can sort of ignore that for here. If you need to use JavaScript libraries that include CSS or otherwise rely on webpack loaders. Okay, so that might then become our problem for sticking with Primer. Although, as I was saying earlier, maybe that's not a deal breaker when we can just, if we're only using the CSS variables and overriding it anyway, we could just take a pre-built version of Primer, right? Like we don't need to be building it everything. Or maybe ESBuild can already do that for us. I don't know. If you're absolutely sure you need tree shaking, if you install Bootstrap, Bomber, PostCSS, or Dart CSS through CSS bundling Rails gem. Right, okay, I'm skimming through this. I don't have a mental model of what we're about to do. And I think that's my problem here. I don't store in my brain a good mental model of a default Rails JavaScript pipeline alongside with I think Webpacker basically. I don't store a good mental model of Webpacker in my brain, which I think is really hampering me here. Let's just keep going, because maybe this will help me build that said mental model. All right, cool. Got stuff coming out. App assets. Yeah, this all seems like putting things back in app assets. We're like going back to sprockets. A JavaScript include tag in application layout. This is presumably okay. We can go back to that tutorial, but like I think the next step it had was like do something in the JavaScript tag. Create default entry point in app JavaScript application. Add default proc file.dev. So this is about the thing it was saying. Okay, so ensure Foreman installed, gem installed Foreman from fetching Foreman. Okay. Well, that's all just installing Foreman. Okay, great. Add bin dev to start Foreman, create bin dev, run esbuild, run yarn, add esbuild from. Okay, that is then doing a bunch of stuff. And building all of our stuff. Okay. Okay. I understand what has happened there. I think I'm really fuzzy on the actual build process of what happened. Let's go back to our tutorial. I'm just going to keep going. Don't try and build a mental model as you go. So swap pack tag for include tag. So is that what this thing was saying it had just done? So in oh shit, I keep flicking around, sorry. So JavaScript include tag above tag in your application file. We want style sheet. Okay, so remove webpack legacy style sheet pack tag. Okay. So let's go and find that. I haven't got one of those. What's happening? God, we didn't even do that this long ago. So we have this just added a JavaScript include tag application with the data turbo track stuff. Okay, fair enough. JavaScript pack tag. Old. Oh, we just don't happen to have one of those, so we just can get rid of this. Okay, so this can go, right? Okay. If your app renders multiple layouts, be sure to remove any JavaScript pack tag there as well. Let's search for JavaScript pack tag. Okay, it's just let's just remove it, not just comment out. Let's make our lives cleaner. Okay, cool. So import stimulus controllers. Even when you already installed stimulus, run the install command again in your terminal and overwrite any conflicts. Okay, this will import all your existing stimulus controllers correctly. I don't think we've done a lot here. Do we have anything more than just hello? They are in. Oh, reveal. Oh, okay. So we've got that little show and hide toggle thing. Okay, well let's do what the thing is telling us. Oh, let's commit some of this stuff. Let's commit some of this. What's happening? Install JS JS bundling Rails gem. Cool. Then stuff. Okay, we didn't really look through any of this. This is more interesting. This is genuinely interesting. Okay, so what's happening here? So git ignore. Adding the output assets to git ignore. Okay, right. These are in no particular order. This is just whatever's in our git changes to be staged. So then we've added to our package JSON ES build and a build config that's given it like the paths and stuff. Okay, cool. Proc file is for Foreman to run. yarn.lock is just having run the changes to package.dev. .keep will put assets build in Git. Okay, fine. Right, manifest.js. So this is for JavaScript stuff in the asset pipeline. So the asset pipeline will know to go and look in builds and include those files and include those files and use those files in the asset pipeline. I'm both saying that as a statement and a question. Okay. Application JS app JavaScript application JS entry point for the build script in your package.json. Okay. Application HTML, and then we're swapping that around. Okay. And then dev.bin is so we can run slash dev or whatever it said, Rails dev, and it's basically just running Foreman. So if you've used Foreman, it's just doing that for you under the hood by the looks of it. Okay, cool. So let's chuck all of this in and just quickly add config installer config for what did we run to generate this? We ran I don't know, yeah, just all output here was generated by running this. Oh, that'll tell me something anyway. Just kind of brushing over that. Okay, great. So we've done that. Run this. Is this because we don't have stimulus as a gem? We only have it we only had stimulus via webpack. So now we don't have a reference to I'm assuming that's what's happening. Just gonna go to the docs. If you're using stimulus for Rails together with an import map, the integration will automatically load all the controls files. Oh, hang on, what was the line above? To install stimulus in your application, add the add. So that's what I did, I'm pretty sure. So we were just doing everything via that. Whereas there is this. Right, which looks like what this tutorial is referencing because it's doing bin Rails stimulus. Is this just one of those ones that's doing just installing a couple of other gems, or is this actually doing? No, this is like the official thing. Okay, what's in here? The stuff. Okay, so I think I'm switching to this, I'm guessing. Let's try this. So we're saying that all we're really doing here is swapping out the mechanism that stimulus will use to get the output we still have a controller file. We've only got one, so it's not a huge difference. But it shouldn't really be, like, us controllers should still be the same. And now we can do what the thing told us to do before, which was this. Okay, so app JavaScript controllers application. And so right, and this was all inside. So this like application.start, blah, 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 from @hotwire.stimulus. That was all previously in here, which was Pack's application, because that was where Webpack was looking. So, okay. And now we've just chucked it in here, which is where something else is going to look. Is Stimulus itself going to do that? Or is just ESBuild going to... The installer will automatically detect whether using an import map or JavaScript bundler. We've got both. So what's just then been created? Import Stimulus controllers app JavaScript application. Does it run yarn ad hoc while Stimulus? App JavaScript application. Has this added a bunch of stuff there because I've got Webpacker installed, which I'm trying to get rid of? Now, after adding or removing a new Stimulus controller, you can use a command which will auto-generate the controller's index file, Rails Stimulate manifest update. Let's do that. See what that does. Very little. Okay, so it added .controllers to app JavaScript application JS. So I think I think I have two sets of config all living alongside each other here. I have the Webpack config and I have the new config stuff. Okay, but maybe that's all just fine because as long as each thing looks for the thing it looks for, it doesn't care. So do I just commit all of this? Let's do this and this and call this install that was gem, and then put all of this in, and then we'll say that we are gonna so add config generated by Stimulus Rails gem, and this was generated by running. Oh no, it was the other one. That didn't do anything, it was this. I'm just going to make a quick note to myself for when I rebase this. Yeah. There's already a bunch of Stimulus config here for Webpack. I'm making an assumption that we can add this stuff, technical terms, alongside, and then remove what we don't need later. Just a note to myself for what I'm trying to do here. Okay. Right, migrate the JS entry point. Move the content from JavaScript packs application JS to JavaScript application JS. After okay, so this has just updated a bunch of that stuff, so now I have to do it by hand. After migrating the file, delete the JavaScript packs folder, which was used by Webpacker. Make sure to import directories in the JavaScript folder with a relative path. Okay, so old require channels, new import channels and controllers. Right. Okay, so I've just been talking about this, and now it's telling me this. But it's useful. I'm not complaining. This is very helpful. So on the right is our new one, and on the left is our old one. And we want to bring everything over, I guess. So some of this is now already here. So hotwire, hotwire, so stimulus stuff is already here. And anything with a require should be switched to an import. Okay. Just gonna do that. I'm do it line by line so I'm understanding what's happening. So channels is so active storage is active storage. Channels is the something hotwire, the cable stuff. Stimulus we've already got. Definitions from context do we now no longer need because it's the webpack helper? Should I just bring it over anyway? Because it will still run and just... That one might break. Okay, fine. And then import dot dot. Right, so import dot dot components we now don't need because we had it added... here, right? Oh, I'm in the wrong place. I'm in the wrong place. This is controllers application JS. Okay, I'm totally in the wrong place. I think I want to be in JavaScript application JS. Yeah. I'm totally in the wrong folder. Okay, ignore all of this. Ignore all of this. Okay, so go back. Sorry, that's my fault. My fault. That's not right. This is the one we want. So this is app JavaScript application JS, JavaScript application, and JavaScript packs application, which means that everything can come over. So it's just import controllers, which is being swapped out. Oh no, and components is for the view component stuff. Okay, great. I think so. I think we do want everything in here. Sorry, yeah, I've totally overcomplicated that hugely. I was misunderstanding what's happening. I think everything here comes. That stays. These all become import. No idea if any of this stuff is going to work. Okay, so let's sort of assume this is our new world that we're living in. Don't know about these stimulus webpack helpers. God knows what will happen there. So when we were removing require from those calls, has require as an API gone altogether? Like, is context a webpack concept that no longer exists? Which might be fine, because all we were trying to do was get... Well, all that one's doing is loading... Yeah, I think this... Is this just doing what this is doing? Can that now go? Because it's now doing that. That has its own entry point here. Yeah, and then you just update the manifest. Okay, yeah. So I think this was just doing a bunch of loading that's now handled there. So I don't think we need that. Do we need... Not sure. Don't know whether we need that or not. So I'm guessing require.context images can probably go, but they can go up into assets images, I would guess. So let's take that out as well for now, because that was only to get images into that we could use in those background variables within there. So, which means we no longer need this, which resolves that issue. So could these all potentially come up here? What did the thing say? Yeah, I'm not really writing that very well. I'm just trying to get to where I'm going. Remove webpack. Okay. Okay. That's gone. So remove webpack packages. Webpack packages and plugins that accumulate over time can be removed. Exclude around blah blah blah. How do you know? How do you know which ones they are? Can you just blast? That's inside node modules, right? So you can just blast that away. And these are all like, do we care that these exist for now? I don't know if we care. Right. Does anything work? Dev. Is that what is that what it is? I actually forgot to look what it was. It was something like that, right? So just start the server like normal, or to run Foreman. Where was I reading about that? Did I just like there was a bunch of stuff with dev in it? Okay, so what does starting the server do? Server's already running. Oh, okay, fine. Oh, is that why dev failed? No, it can't build dev. What was the thing we added? Did I make that up? Oh, is it like? Is it just like bin? Oh, dev? Oh, okay, yeah. Cool. Okay, so a bunch of stuff. Great. Okay, so could not resolve channels. So ES build is trying to do some stuff and now it can't do it. Cool. Oh, thank you in the chat. Bin dev, yeah. So me assuming I was in the wrong place. Okay, cool. So could not resolve channels. I forgot what channels was for. Could not resolve components. Oh, because these are not. Oh, wait. It did mention that these were relative, right? It did say something relative paths. Be sure to import directories in the JavaScript folder with a relative path. So they are broken. And they are broken in app. JavaScript application. Yes, not packs. Okay, great. What's the first one that's broken? The first one that's broken is, let's go to the top here, channels. And we have channels and an index. So this is for this. So this should be somewhere, it should say channels. Here. And this should be slash, I think. Oh, is that the replacement? That's oh, here. Oh, yeah, great error messages. Use the relative, I should have read this. Use the relative path channels to reference the file. Without the leading slash, the path channels is being... Great error message. Thank you to whoever wrote that. Components is just wrong. Components is actually in the same directory, but I think might be using a bunch of webpack stuff. Let's just come back to components in a second. Tricks is imported by Magic. Don't know. Rhymer is now going to be a whole question mark. Let's come back to that as well. So components and primer can go together because they're big question marks now. You can mark the path primer CSS index as external to exclude it from the bundle, which will remove this error. Interesting. Don't know what the results of that would be. And they couldn't resolve variables. So that's the same thing basically. So let's remove the ones with errors to start with. Okay, so do we get stuff? Cool. Okay, so we get our output. But we don't have any of our CSS because it came from a library that's now broken. So oops. We are getting something. Okay, require context. Where's... I thought we took the context calls out. We must have left some of these in. Is that within like channels or something? Right, okay, so is it within there? So I'm assuming this is all webpacky stuff. Go and get all of the files within there. Whereas yeah, okay, so we installed all of that stuff at the point where we had Webpack, and I'm assuming that this API here to require context is all Webpack related. I'm guessing now. I should tell us which one it's coming from. Yep, it is that one there. So I don't know whether we left any code in with. I don't think we're actually using action cable, active cable, action cable for anything. Action cable. Could we just reinstall action cable but without Webpack? Packages, we'll go back to this will build stuff. Can I just comment out for now? We're not using it, so we could come back and fix that later. So we could genuinely just sort of do that. Fix it when we need it. Okay, source map error, request folder 404, localized assets, application dot debug, bunch of fingerprint stuff, JS. When I click on it, there is a file there. Oh, because it's the source map that's failed? Yeah, okay. So maybe, I don't know if we're telling it to build the source map for that or not. Okay. So I think something is working, maybe. I'm not quite sure how to check that because with all the CSS broken, nothing is going to work. Okay, so should we be getting our little hello? Could we just put like hello world in here to see if any of this is, because this is new. I don't think we need that. Oh, but connect only happens when the element connects. Okay. Does the reveal one work? That should be on every page. Okay, maybe now we're discovering that's not firing. Okay, I'm going to put a time clock on this because I have to be at my sister's place at 1 and it's now 12:20. So we're going to give this 20 minutes of very hard thinking, lots of furrowed brows. All right. Cool. We're midway through. Something's happened, but we don't quite know what. And right, do we get anything out of at all? Yes. Okay, great. So okay, first things first, is anything running at all? Like, is this happening? Yes. So things are being imported correctly. Great. So in here, oh my god, look how much faster that is. Webpack was taking like I know that I've just literally written hello world, but like it was taking 5 seconds, 10 seconds to do that, even if you just put a console.log in. Okay, so that's okay. So we're now getting here. So presumably we are importing the reveal controller because we have reached that line of code and we haven't got any errors. So presumably in here, we are simply not hitting the connect method of this for some reason. Otherwise, we would be getting this console log from the reveal controller. Now, if we go to, is that because of where we are? I can't remember everything about that. But the stuff at the top of the page has gone. Like, what was it that was triggering this? Reveal controller. And is it in the page? And I'm just picking this count nav bar, data controller reveal. No matches. Because I'm not signed in. Okay. So breaking the CSS means that I can't seem to do any of the stuff I need to do. But I am signed in because I get this. I've got a little T. Oh, is it only an admin? Okay, so maybe that's why it's not working. So Sunday Club. No, it would be Sunday Club admin. Amazing. Great. Okay, cool. So good checking. So stimulus is working as expected. I can remove my debugging there. Sorry, that was a little rabbit hole. I just wanted to check. So the reason the connect method wasn't firing is because that controller wasn't being called anywhere. Okay, cool. So the only thing that is broken is our CSS. And that's because we were calling it with webpack. Now, can we then get... Oh, well, this goes sort of back to what I was saying earlier then. So could we just get the primer CSS? So because we're not trying to actually do anything with it, installing section. Oh, I've already been through this once with webpack. Could we just get like a output version? We don't need to build it every time, right? Where's installing? Okay, but there was something in there about like using an external thing in our new world. Like in here, when I had this and I ran it, I got something about an error that said could not resolve at primer CSS index, blah, blah, blah. You can mark the path, blah, blah, as external to exclude it from the bundle. Is it? Just about how I import it? Could I... Yeah, we looked earlier at adding those include parts. I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to get to here for primer. Like everything here sort of makes sense to me. But here... Get the error back here. Could not resolve at primer at CSS index. Is there something straightforward where there's kind of explainer for this for me? Use primer CSS with build. And this is definitely my lack of understanding of exactly what is happening here. I've done like, I have read stuff about this over time. I've done like no prep. We just sort of dived into that tutorial. Shout out to whoever wrote that tutorial because everything does seem to have worked. And I'm just sort of like fixing a couple of these issues. I didn't necessarily think Webpacker was slow, maybe on Heroku builds, but when you use this, you wonder why you put up with Webpacker for so long. Okay, so that click through because there was something about, oops. So I don't care about, as far as CSS is concerned, the best approach would be to use CSS bundling Rails and have a separate build task just for the CSS files. But I wasn't, right, so I think I'm confused as to what was happening previously. Like, what part of Primer were we actually building with Webpacker? Like, what was actually happening there? Again, I just sort of skimmed over the setup for the stream. Because even then, it's just a bunch of JavaScript that outputs happens to be Sass, right? Like maybe searching for primer specifically is a bad idea because I don't think it's hugely used. ES build plugin to import CSS files as JavaScript tag literal object. No, not that. Okay, so the other point I was trying to get to was like, you know how some like Tailwind and stuff is like, hey, here's a CDN with literally just a file you can import. Like maybe for now we just need that. And maybe this just doesn't work with anything else. Maybe this is what I'm looking for very temporarily. Don't need to build stuff if you just grab it from a CDN. Science. Cool. Fixed one thing by not really fixing it, but don't need to worry about that. Okay, so the CSS. Well, let's go back to our event page we were looking at earlier because that should still. Okay, so now what's broken is the other thing that was in here that I've forgotten. The component stuff? What was in here? Yeah, so all the SAS for each individual component was being loaded. Ah, that was really helpful. Right, okay, so we really want to recreate this. I think we're going to run out of time. This might be a place to pick up next week to see if this is even possible or not. So in our view components, we said, oh, you know what would be handy is putting the SAS file alongside the HTML and Ruby file for each component, so that then you could A, have them all in the same place, and B, in a future world, you could manipulate them so that the output was namespaced, so you could even like just take, you could like dynamically change the CSS and all that stuff. We didn't get around to any of that, but we did put in this file, the one we've just been looking at, JavaScript components. And my understanding is that this goes through the components directory, and for each file that ends in _components.scss, loads it into webpack's load path, or whatever that thing is. I can't remember what it's called for webpack, but like it's like, hey, here you go, you care about these, and we then include those in our output CSS. And we now want the same thing to happen from our CSS build. Our CSS now comes solely from Sprout. Like, is ES build still doing this output? Yeah, it must be, right? Yes. Because this still has this stuff in it. Okay, cool. And that is still listed in style sheets primer. How is that getting output? How is this file being output? because it's not being referenced here explicitly because we've carved that out. Is I have no idea how that file is still working. Oh, it's not. Okay, great. Should I just break it? Yes. Okay, great. It's not. Wait, what? Oh, this is working. I'm so confused. I'm so confused. Wait, why is that now working? Why am I not getting loads of errors for that? I am. It's saying, hey, I can't. Oh, wait, do I just see? Okay, so mark. Okay, maybe it is working, but I just need to mark it as external so I don't see the error. Okay, maybe I've misunderstood. Okay, fucking hell. I want to like mark as external. This must be such a fucking frustrating thing to watch. How do I mark it as external? Look for the word external. Nope. Okay, let's just search for the word ES build. somewhere this has to be obvious. In here? ES build mark file as external. Great. Okay, cool. There's some stuff here. External. You can mark a file or a package as external to exclude from build instead of being bundled. Then import will be preserved. The import will be preserved using require or the and will be evaluated at runtime instead. There's several uses. Oh, okay. So you actually have to pass it to this. So in here, do this, and then we do primer. Oh, great. You can also use the barcode character and external about to mark all files matching that pattern. External, you can use .png, images, external path. Oh, here we go. At foobar explicit means dash external foobar. Okay, so at primer slash CSS. Okay, let's try that. And then style sheet variables is now wrong because it's the wrong load path, I think. Okay, we've got 4 minutes. We might be able to get this working in 4 minutes. I can't grab the right thing. So in here, this is now not. Okay, so could not resolve style sheets primer variables. Because it's just this now from here. Or is it because variables is a SAS file and that's no longer covered here? It's saying it could not resolve it though. Ah, here that is working, and then it's just saying you can mark it as external. So we could then do that and that. I don't know if this is what we should be doing. but it did seem to be working. So in here, does external take a comma separated list? Or multiple externals? I feel like I've both learned a lot and have no idea what's happened. Yeah, I'm just going to be finishing up now. Okay, so still getting error. No, we're no longer getting errors, but we also don't have everything working. And that's because of our components. Yeah, so our component CSS is now not loading. And Trix isn't loading either. Okay, I've got to go because I've got to go to my sister's place. This has been fun, I think. Like I said, learned a lot or have learned nothing, but we have made a lot of changes, and I really feel like I need to sit down and draw out what I believe a build pipeline in a modern Rails application to look like with and without Webpacker. But I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to do that. And maybe we'll do it on next week's stream. Thank you so much for people dropping in the chat. It was lovely to see Finian. Hello to everybody who commented. I super appreciate you all. And if you watch this on YouTube during the week, feel free to drop me a note. All my details are usually in the YouTube comments. And we're basically going to pick up where we left off next week. And hopefully we will have no Webpack and everything working. And we can make some... decisions along the way as we go and get it figured. Have wonderful weeks. Enjoy yourselves, and I will see you all next Sunday, 10:30 a.m. UK time. Bye bye.